sun and give thanks for today and for our creation. Wabanagi people.
Mountains, vistas, forests, water. Vermont is home to some beautiful things.
I think that there is something more to the Abenaki story than just these isolated little bands stuck in these little hills.
And like I said, I didn't think it was going to happen. I figured we were going to go a lot more years doing this, going over and over again.
They don't want to get caught up in all of the mudslinging. They don't want to put themselves out there and to be attacked by all these different people who are saying you're fake and fraud and wannabes.
So who are these people in Vermont, and why would they endure so much adversity from so many directions?
Basically, the way that anthropologists tend to think about the Abenakis, first would be one of the divisions, the 5 divisions of a group of people called the Wabanaki, which includes, of course, the Mi'kmaq people, the Maliseet, Passamaquoddies, Penobscots. And then to the west of them is the least known group, which are called the Abenakis or Western Abenakis.
The Abenaki also extended up into Canada.
4 of the main tribes in Vermont, Elnu, who is, like I said, down south, the Nulhegan band, which is our band, the Missisquoi, and then the traditional band of Kawasuk, were the 4 main tribes that came together to form an alliance to fight for recognition for our tribes and for our people.
I think not long after Euro contact, the Abenakis were in a really weird position. You know, they were literally caught between a rock and a hard place. They were caught between, you know, a very determined British force and a less empirical and more capitalist, I guess, French population.
You got to realize is that after the French and Indian War, this was all become English territory, Puritans in particular, all of New England, and they hated the Abenakis. We were the scourge of the Puritan people, you know, in the 16 and 1700s, and so the last thing they would ever want to have is an Abenaki reservation. Most of us at that time were Catholic.
They never either suffered or were given the privilege of being on reservations. So the Abenaki people in this neck of the woods here have remained as tiny little family bands, little enclaves, tiny communities stuck in mountain hamlets.
Because we never signed any treaties or anything like that, at least in the United States, the people on this side of the border, we have really no record with the government as being in existence. So that's kind of hurt us over the years.
We've always had struggles with our people from the time Ethan Allen was here and had a trading company and said, well, there was no Vermont Indians, that they just traveled through here. They were all Canadian Indians, and that way he didn't have to pay anything for using their land. You know, that really hit us hard.
The 20s and the 30s was a real bad time because of the eugenic stuff, and I think that drove even more people deeper underground.
They were hunted by the state to be sterilized. There's a Sterilization Act in 1931 that basically anybody they thought was undesirable could be sterilized in the state of Vermont, and there's a lot of records on that.
I think what happened was all these people during the 60s, you know, they seen all the black folks getting, kind of recognized and getting their rights and all that kind of stuff, the civil rights whole thing. And I think by the 70s, you started seeing people, the Abenaki folks starting to say, and a lot of Indian people, I think around the whole country, it's like, we've had enough of this, and they started pushing their stuff.
3 or 4 decades ago, the Abenakis in Swanton, just an hour and a half west of here, relatives of ours, put themselves on the map. They had a charismatic, very larger-than-life leader named Homer St. Francis. Homer was able to raise his hand and have the whole state look at him and his people.
I think he did what he had to do at that point in time. But then after that, things kind of broke down, a lot of infighting, splitting up, people, all over the place.
As Indians do, they always fight amongst themselves and who is more important than the others. And the struggle for recognition, you had to not only fight other Native people, but you also had to fight people who had their own agendas for the state, because there was no financial reason for the state to recognize us.
In 2005, we petitioned the state of Vermont for state recognition.
So the process for recognition in Vermont had begun. But what level of government should be pursued? What are the pros and cons? Also, what does it mean to be recognized?
Federal recognition is granted by the United States government, by the BIA or the Congress, or an act of the President. And what federal recognition does is it grants sovereignty to a tribe, to a nation, to an indigenous nation. And it allows them to govern themselves within the law of the federal government.
It cost about between $6 and $8 million for a tribe to get federal recognition today because of all of the politics, all the lobbying that's required, the huge amount of research.
State recognition is when the state that you live in, that your community resides in, does the exact same thing. They grant you that sovereignty within their state, which really is no sovereignty, Some people like to refer to state recognition as cultural recognition. It helps to enhance or revitalize a culture that is in danger of loss.
State recognition under the United States Indian Arts and Crafts Act allows citizens of state-recognized tribes to sell their wares as American Indian. So that checks off the needs to protect our artists from being touted off as a fake. Until about 1976, Governor Thomas Salmon of the state of Vermont gave the Abenakis recognition by executive order on Thanksgiving.
And then it was taken away because it wasn't in statute. It was just given by a governor. And the sportsmen thought that we were going to be able to hunt and fish for free, and that gave them a whole bunch of, they have a huge voting block because a lot of people are hunters and fishermen. So the governor just revoked it with a stroke of a pen.
The new governor, Richard Snelling, in February of the next year, 1977, withdrew recognition by this executive order. And so basically the Abenakis had no form of recognition at all. And it really wasn't until probably 1992, 1993, when a state senator, Vermont state senator from our capital in Montpelier, came to the Abenakis and said, you need to go for state recognition. And so that started the legislative phase, which went on from 1992, reached a kind of crescendo about 1995 and 96, and then was squashed by the then Governor Howard Dean, who was afraid of, if the Abenakis got recognition by the state, strangely enough, that they would then go for federal recognition and get land claims, take land away from Vermonters, set up a casino. And so the state of Vermont emerged as a ferocious enemy.
So then there's been a struggle from that time up until about 2006. We finally passed a recognition bill for the Abenaki people, but at the last minute they gutted it and only recognized Abenaki people as a minority. Okay, so you were looked at as a minority in Vermont, but the BIA wouldn't accept that because you have to have recognized tribes.
So in 2005, I got into it. Several of us got into this fight, this battle for recognition, and we decided, we made the investment, you know, the physical and the mental, the emotional investment to never give up. We will accept nothing less than outright recognition. We want no limitations. We want no proclamation, which doesn't mean anything. We want no resolution, which doesn't mean anything either. We want statute. We want a Vermont law that says that our people, our tribe, our body politic is recognized officially by this state as an American Indian tribe.
And it was heartbreaking. Every year I started thinking, you know, this would be the year. And it just never happened until, interestingly enough, Missisquoi went for federal recognition and was turned down for federal recognition in the early 2000s. And once Missisquoi was kind of out of the picture as far as getting any form of federal recognition, the Attorney General and the Governor withdrew their, I guess you could say, their attacks against us. And all of a sudden, it was okay.
Well, I think the day that we found out that our bill was going to be signed, there was disbelief, there was shock, there was, okay, waiting for the hammer to drop. Okay, is the guy not going to sign it at the last minute? You know, is this really going to, okay, what's the deal here? Because we have, and honestly, it was kind of, we didn't really know what to feel because we'd been fighting this for so long.
You know, you're sitting there and you're like, nah, they're not going to do it. They've kind of messed us around so many times and made us jump through so many hoops and stuff. And then even up to the time when we got in there, you still were like not 100% sure that it was going to happen, you know, until they said, yeah, you're going to meet with the governor, and there were 150 people in the room and stuff. You know, you knew that it was going to happen. So, you know, it was a good day.
We were with the governor. He told the story about his great grandfather being Native American and not being able to share that with people, and that was a touching story that nobody ever heard before.
When my little girls walked down the living room, the fireplace of our house, they got to look at a picture, a black and white picture, of their great-great-grandfather, who is a tall, strikingly beautiful Native American man. He married my mother. She was white. So we could never talk about the fact that he was Native American, and we were told never to ask questions. So his photo stands in my living room as their tribute to an extraordinary man who could not talk about his identity. And today we sign these bills so that you can be proud of yours. Congratulations.
That's when the tears start to flow, and you go out into the woods and you find your special spot, and you just sit there all by yourself, and you just you bury yourself. I'm not talking about taking off your clothes. I'm talking about burying yourself, you know, and you just let it, that two-letter word, it, happen, you know, and you bawl your head off, you know, and you scream at the sky, and you laugh, and you do all of that within a few seconds of each other, you know. And most of it is because of the sacrifices that have gone into it.
With the recognition of a tribe, there comes relief, hope, and of course everyone joining for a celebration.
It's just a get-together, man. You know, that's why they didn't call it a powwow or anything like that. We're trying to get a little bit away from the whole typical powwow thing and just kind of a little more Abenaki stuff.
Our focus was on our people, Nulhegan people and Elnu people and Abenaki people in general, and the Wabanaki and Seven Nations communities that are friends to us.
We've had some interesting conversations with some of the people here, and we briefly saw this presentation of dancing. I think that the Abenaki are making big efforts to educate, especially their young, in their traditions, and in the hope that, you know, to keep their traditions alive. And I think that this is very important for them, and it's good to see.
It's fun to be here and be able to bring our children and have them see. Yeah, have them see that there's still some cultural memory of dance and food, and yeah, so I think that's important.
I really like being able to come be with the native people and listen to the drums and to see the dancing, the sun dance, the fertility dance, and I think it's a really important thing, and I like being here and I like the feel of it. Yeah, it's good.
I talked to Luke a little while ago. He'd been a friend of mine for many moons. They have 100 acres here on this land, and I think it's very sacred. I wish they would have more gatherings here. It's a gathering. It's not a powwow, it's just a gathering, but when you go into that sacred circle, it's a lot of power there. I can feel it.
We're celebrating who we are and just getting back down to the old rendezvous that people used to have, where native people and groups would come together and celebrate, talk about native things, and dance and worship and do everything like you would when you were traditional, and not get the commercial stuff out of it. And that's our main focus is to celebrate that, not the commercialism.
All right, so what is the Abenaki world going to look like, you know, after I'm gone? Well, my hope is that all these different little bands are going to get to know each other. The last little bits of bickering between bands, I hope, will be gone, and people will live in peace and harmony.
I would love to see a place where all people can go and talk and pray, that's set up specifically either by the state or a native joint owned land that is strictly for native people to come and just, it's not owned by one group, it's owned by the native people, where they can come and go as they want and build upon a central area to do that.
I would like to see all of the little children here learning the Abenaki language, our dialect of it, at a young age. I would like to see us on a path of self-governance. Yeah, That's what I'd like to see.
Some of the big things I'd like to see is economic development for the people, you know, all of the Wabanaki, Abenaki people in Vermont, New Hampshire and stuff. But also our language, bringing our language back more so than it is now. I mean, there's only probably about 6 speakers, maybe 7 speakers who speak it fairly fluent. Bringing back the songs, the traditions, I guess that's where I'm at with it, is trying to bring back as much of the old stuff. And at the same time kind of just live, you know, in the modern world too.